Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today, Parker's coming, and I have a number of things for us to work on. We are in the detail stage, so it's lots of little things. I've got a start on the elevator trim tab, which I'm going to probably have Parker work on that, and then I'll show you over here. I've got, I just epoxied that block that you saw me make in place yesterday. So I just have blue tape clamps. I was just holding it there. And so what you can see is now that block is epoxied there. And all we have to do is let me put our cable through there like we have it now. We just have a little set screw on top right here. You saw me tap that out. And then I put some thin CA in the threads a couple times so that it's nice and kind of a snug fit for the screw. That's an 832 screw there. I'll probably work on getting the gasculator, not the gasculator. We spent a lot of time on the gasculator. Getting the facet pump mounted to the sidewall. And what I did is I put some threaded inserts into the block, the brass ones. Again, since this is going to be a little bit forward, it would be kind of awkward to use screws to the outside like I did for the facet pump bracket. It'd be much easier to just reach in there with a screwdriver and take that thing loose. So, and then I'm also working on the front piece where the intake tubes come off the back of the engine. It required a 3-inch hole here, and I did some scaling off of the excuse me, I did some scaling off of a photograph to find out that it was actually located right at the bottom of this piece right here that goes on, and that's where you make the cut. And then it's about a 3-inch hole, and we will hope that we got it right. I tried to reach out to some people on the Facebook. Interesting process. You know, social media is interesting. I was reaching out for legitimate assistance, like, can somebody who has a half VW like mine locate this pipe for me off the back of the engine or something, so I have some reference point to figure this out. Anyway, the whole discussion turned into whether or not you can actually get 45 horsepower out of a half VW and a bunch of other stuff, and who cares? I mean, who cares about dynoing a half VW? If you put it on the plane and it flies it as expected, I don't really care what the actual horsepower rating is. Scott Kassler says it's rated at 45. Lots of people are flying them, and you know, as long as it flies me as expected, I could care less. And I'm certainly not going to argue about it on Facebook. And so, basically, I got no assistance at all. So, you know, so what? So, I'm hoping that I got this right. I really believe I do. So, so then I made another. Then you make another piece of wood that goes in here, and it actually fits up against here, like so, and that helps carry the load throughout there. So I'll have that to epoxy in, and one more of those to make, and it'll go, of course, on this side. And then so I'll work on that. But right now, since I have a little time, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, and I'm actually going to show you how to build a wing rib. So there are couple of what I consider essential items for doing this, and one for me is this miter box right here. I picked this up at Rockler. They sell them in a lot of locations, so you don't necessarily have to go to Rockler to get it, but for making square cuts, it's just exceptional. And I actually used it to cut nearly everything, because I'll demonstrate for you how I use the let's just take an example here. Let's pick one that's it doesn't really matter. We'll just take number 5 here. So these are all numbered because they were my templates, and this is exactly what I would do. I would use my template. Let's get you in here so you can see. And then I would take a piece of material that I'm gonna make. You know, I had all my parts kind of ready to go. Just my strips of material. Here we go. Here's one that we can use. So what I do obviously for the square end, since I've got to square this one off, just put it in there. And super easy. Get a nice square cut every time. And then what I do for the other end is I would take my member here and get it where I want it. And then I put it in, I just lay it in here. Hopefully you can see that good. Yeah. I just lay it in here, and I push it over to the edge, and then I'm just using my blade here, and I bring it right up against the edge of the aluminum. That way I can keep the blade going vertical, and I don't have to worry about am I doing that or not doing that. And then just make sure everything is good on the back side here. Then you just push it right to the edge. Lay your blade in there where you need it. You have a nice guide. And this is how I would just sit and make my parts. Then you have 2 identical parts. And so then I would mark that number 5, set that aside in the number 5 pile. And so for every piece that I have, for all of my pieces, that's how I would do it. I would make a bunch of 9s and 8s and 7s and 6s and 13s. So once I got the rib in here, the way I liked it, because you can actually see, like on my number 5, I actually had to just add a little bit of plywood to the bottom because I wasn't completely satisfied with the fit. So I just kept working it until I was super happy with the curve. My number 4 is the same way. It's got about a 1/16 of ply on the bottom. So one of the things that you want to make sure of when you're building your jig, and you can see it starts with a fence here of some 1/4" material, and then I went in and I beveled where the gussets go, just to keep some of the epoxy from getting all over the place. So it really helped out a lot by not getting a lot of epoxy on the fixture itself. But when you're building your fixture, the first thing you do is get this really straight here. And then the next thing is when you get your spar locations in, this one specifically, you have to make sure that this matches the thickness of your spar. And I say plus a 64th or something, because because the last thing you want is when you get your spar completely built and you go to slide this rib on, you do not want to be fighting a rib that doesn't fit the spar because this gap is a little bit too small. So my insurance was that little sliver of paper that you can see right there. That was my insurance. It's just a little bit of cardboard that made sure that when I got time to slide this on my spar, I was not going to have a problem getting that to fit good. So, and as you can see, even after doing that, there is, this is a horrible place to show you, but there's just no gap. I mean, there is no gap. It was still plenty tight on that rear spar, and there was no extra room. So anyway, that's important. And so your cams are basically just dowels, and I used just a 1-inch dowel, and then you just drill your hole off center, and I just have a little mark that shows me where the shallow side is, and then when you turn it, when you turn the cam, it tightens up on the fat side. It tightens up against your support here. So the mark shows me my shallow side, so all I gotta do is turn it back to that. And that's just basically so I can reset the jig. I just go around and make sure all those lines are pointing toward the pieces. Then the jig is reset. And like this one here, I gotta turn that one in. And yeah, my gussets, as you know, my friend Bob Holman cut those for me on the laser, so those were easy enough. But I just get them laid out, and you wherever you're going to epoxy, you just sand the backside of them. This is actually one that was used to make an end rib, and we'll talk about this in a second. This is the most important piece of this entire puzzle. But that's not what we're doing today. We're just showing you how this works. So, and I even made a template for the very end, the end right here, so that it for the top piece, and all I do with that, I just hold it on here in place, and I cut. It's that angle at the back there. Just spent some time getting that. Basically just marking it. And then I put my blade in there and just pull this back so I've got a nice straight edge to work against. So that's the first thing you do. You get the bottom one in place right here. You get the bottom one in, and I have a couple marks here where I show, you know, this is the end of the rib right here, just the square piece, and then you have you want to hang over this end a little bit, about I don't know, I just hang over an inch or so. It's just to make sure I can get this in here, and then once I get that in place, and I have kind of everything laid out. Then you get everything set to cut, so you can cut your top piece. I'll show you how this goes. So I push this down so it's fitting tight against the bottom. And then I just go through and I do all the verticals. So I get number 2 in there, and my number 3, pushing it tight against here. And then my 4, 5, and then when you do your number, you keep the diagonals out for now. 5, and then when you do your 6, 7, 8 right here, you just have to put them in just kind of temporarily, so you can get your top rib piece in there. So I just use, basically I'm using just pushing the number 8 down against the rib there, so I can fit those in, and I get the number 9. All right, and so once you get that done, you take your piece here that you just cut, and you bend it and drop it in here, and then you fit it. I have a line. I just have a line for myself where this goes. You can see on here where it ends, and it's a line I have drawn right there on my jig, so I know where to push this to. So I get this right up against there, like so. I don't know if you can see that. And then once I get it there, I do the same thing. I just tighten my cam, and then I'm all good there. And then the thing I remembered to do is I marked where the cut line is. So I make a little mark here so I don't lose track of that. And then I know later where I'm going to cut all these off. So now that I've got that in place where it goes, then you just take your top cams and you just tighten them down until everything fits the way it should. It'll force these down against the other members, against your other verticals. Now, when you get to the front, I use this block. I position this block right here by moving it back and forth until my curve matched exactly where I wanted it to. So now all you have to do is you just pull this down, and it just falls in against your block. And then that's where I was really happy with the curve on the top. So paper expands and contracts. So once you get everything, your measurements, you can see I marked a measurement here, the 6 7/8. There's a couple of critical dimensions. Obviously, this is one down here, and this is one here. I just made sure when I built the jig the first time that those measurements were correct. It's more important that those are correct than you actually match your paper perfectly, so because the paper is going to come and go. So once I get that, I leave myself enough room over here to staple this on, And like I said, this is extremely important because this is the thing that holds this whole thing in holds its shape. And I just used some 16th ply for that, just because it's really nice and sturdy. So once we got that in place like so, then you just come in here and make sure you've got enough room for that to fit in there, and just cut this off. So now my jig is it's just on a melamine shelf that I bought at Home Depot, and I use some vinyl. This vinyl sheet here, you actually can buy it at the you can buy the vinyl sheet like at like Joann Fabrics. That's where I purchased mine at. They have different thicknesses, and you just pick which one you want. I think mine is something like 0.8 millimeter, something in that range. Worked perfect. You know, the epoxy won't stick to it, and it actually works out really good. And so the next step is, you can see that I've got my my gussets all laid out where they're going to go, and I have those ready to go. Then you just have to do one more thing. You have to come in here and make yourself a mark right at the back side of the show this to you. So you need a line. You just need a line reference. So I drew it right at the back side of that, because what you're going to do is when you actually put this on, that's the line that you're going to put it on up to. So I just go right up to that line, and then I stop right there. So, and the same on the top side. When you put this one on, you're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to put it right up to the line, and then you know you've got it positioned in the right place. So, all right. So now, once you're set up, you just get some epoxy mixed up, and then we'll start the stapling process. All right. All right. So the first thing I do is I just loosen these guys that are holding the verticals tight against here, and then I just take my epoxy and I go and I pick each one of these up. Sure, mix it really good here. It's gonna just hang on the wall, but so you have to release the pressure on this one. So on these guys. And so we pick each of them up, and we're just putting some epoxy on the end. And then we can put them back in, press them tight against the bottom here, and tighten them up. And so we just go through and do each one of those. Have to grab it with the gloves there. Tighten that one up, tighten that one up. And now, when you do these, your top and bottom pieces, not the one that's in between, but these guys here. Another reason why I drew that line is because when I epoxy this to the top, since I'm going to be cutting this out later and I want the back part to separate for the aileron, I only put epoxy up to that line right there, and I don't go past that. So you just leave this part dry, so that when you put this on, when you go to cut this off, there's no glue beyond that, and it actually tells you on the plan not to glue for that 1 inch section. So that line actually helps you, just helps you register that. So and once you get those two epoxy, then you can put this piece, put this in between piece in there. Tight. Number 9. And then it's important to remember your diagonals, because I actually built a couple ribs and wasn't really paying close attention to myself, and I ended up kind of messing up. I stapled gussets on before I got these in place, so you want to make sure once you get your verticals in, you go back and pick up these diagonals, so you don't forget them, because I did forget them a couple of times. So. On the square end, excuse me, on the square ends of these, you're not really getting any epoxy in there, but it's a good idea to go ahead and epoxy that anyway, because it's sealing it up. There's just no reason to make this fit, exactly in that corner. So you just leave them square on one end, and I cut little angles on the other end. But at least you're getting epoxy covered up on that end grain. And then you don't want to forget to do the back here, so okay, got those all in. Now we can pull our rib back, top of the rib back in place. Make sure we're all pushed down. Once we are, tighten up each of these. Okay. And then for the back here, it just gets a staple right across the, gets a staple like so. Just that'll hold that back, no problem. All right, so we'll get I just get the epoxy on the rib, and I just put a little bit on the wood here, just to make sure that nothing's going to be dry. And you can see I've got a little stop here, so when I put this one on, I just push it up against there. I don't have to worry about locating it. And then you just hit the middle of your rib member with the staple. So it's 1/4 inch staples, and so it just gets stapled just like that, just right in the middle. And then get over here. I just repeat that whole situation. And then when you get to these, all you do is you just make sure that you're up against your line, and then it gets I think 1, 2, 3, 4 staples, 5 staples, and you can kind of see on your piece here, you got a double thickness here, so you have to put a little extra epoxy on there, because you've got covered both of these members here, and you've got the single up there. So on these particular ones, what I did is I just went ahead and just kind of smeared epoxy on the whole piece. So and of course you don't get any down here, so your line kind of shows you where to stop with the epoxy. It goes there, but not there. So, and we go up against our line, and I'm going right to the edge where the two pieces meet right there. And then I put one right here, and that picks up that extra piece. Okay, so we've got all the gussets stapled on this side. You can see here, I just made sure that I stayed right on the line between these two pieces right here, because this gets cut later with the Zona saw, top and bottom, and then that's what allows the aileron to come free. And remember, we put no epoxy between these two members in that location, that 1 inch. It shows you right there on the plan. Don't epoxy this to that. Our staple's in place here, which is important. And like I said before, this is the most important piece of this whole thing, because without a good solid piece here, this whole thing comes unraveled. So it's extremely important that you have a good stable piece of material in this location. So, and you just come in and staple that in place. And that way, when we undo all these, so we're going to loosen everything back up. Let's get everything loosened up here. And now the whole thing comes right out. And there you go. And if you sight down the rib there, everything is nice and flat. Maintains its shape. And then all you do is you just flip the rib over. Get all these off here. Get the jig out of it. Now you just flip the rib over and staple everything, epoxy and staple just like you did on the other side. Just put your epoxy on there, epoxy on here, epoxy on the wrong side. Let's try that again. Let's do this side. And when we get that in place, down here, you will need to make yourself a line, just like you did before on the top side, so you know exactly where to position these back here. So going along the back edge of this vertical member, drawing a line all the way across. So when I get to those, I know exactly where they go. All right, so I'll just come in here and staple these in place. And here are the two lines that I drew. I drew a line here and there, so that when I get to those members, I can see exactly where to position that, right in the corner, just like I did on the top side. And then I know I'm perfectly aligned with the other side. So draw that line on the back side of this vertical member right here. So All right, so that is how you build a rib. I'm gonna go ahead and finish this one up, get all the staples on, and then you do not remove this until that epoxy is set. So then you just come in here, cut there, and you're all set. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you. I know for a while I've been thinking about I need to go back and pick up this piece because I actually built my ribs before I started my videos. And maybe this can explain a little better to you how this goes. If you were building the root rib over here, you can see how this being epoxied doesn't work because you got to put the plywood on. So what you would have is you would have dry gussets. This might explain it better. Those would be dry, no epoxy. Then you would epoxy them to this side. Now you would epoxy these on. Then you flip the rib over and you actually remove all of these gussets, and then you're ready to epoxy this rib to that plywood. That's how that goes. All right, so hey, Parker will be here in a while. We'll start another video and work on some of the things that we're gonna do. And yeah, so I'll catch you later.